So I moved my family for a better chance of survival. But it turns out there's no such thing as safe in this world, and no God or creator to ask for help or to answer to when you need it most.
These words, spoken by Isaac Reed in American Primeval, capture the essence of a man who has learned the brutal costs of connection in America's untamed West. In 1857, as the Utah Territory erupted in conflicts between Mormons, Native Americans, and the U.S. Army, men like Isaac carved out existence in the spaces between civilizations, not just surviving, but choosing to remain apart. Before we examine Isaac's journey, we need to understand the rich critical framework behind this archetype. In the literary world, Herman Melville gave us the term Isolato in Moby Dick, someone who deliberately chose to remove themselves from society. The Western genre developed its own version, called the Wolf Walker, a figure who moves between civilization and wilderness, belonging fully to neither. In the film world, we got 1972's Jeremiah Johnson, who is perhaps best exemplified, where Robert Redford's character retreats to the mountains after the Mexican-American War, only to find that isolation doesn't guarantee peace. Like Isaac, Johnson's reluctant connections to both settlers and Native Americans ultimately lead to tragedy, forcing him deeper into the wilderness. Similarly, there's The Revenant, where Leonardo DiCaprio plays Hugh Glass, a character who embodies the primal survival instinct and cultural liminality that defines Isaac's character, existing in the brutal space between civilizations while seeking a personal vengeance that offers no real healing. The trope is called a hermit guru, or liminal man, someone who exists perpetually between worlds, between white and Native American cultures, between civilization and wilderness. Kevin Costner's John Dunbar in Dances with Wolves represents a more romanticized version of the archetype, though his journey moves in the opposite direction from Isaac, towards rather than away from tribal integration. The mountain men of the 1850s were more than just skilled survivors, though. They were cultural intermediaries, often serving as guides and interpreters between native tribes and white settlers. Yet historical accounts tell us many chose isolation, haunted by violent encounters or cultural displacement. Isaac Reed embodies this complex legacy, but American Primeval takes this historical figure and transforms him into something more nuanced than we see in shows like Deadwood, where frontier characters remain firmly within their respective cultural spheres despite the chaos around them. When we first meet Isaac at Fort Bridger, he's introduced as the best guide there is, but one who refuses to guide. His rejection of Sarah's money comes with the cruel dismissal of her disabled son.
I ain't got business in crooks. Especially with a woman and a cripple.
Already we see how this character subverts the traditional Western hero, where the classic reluctant hero eventually softens. Isaac's harshness comes from a place of genuine trauma. Unlike the vengeful but ultimately redemptive journey of Ethan Edwards and John Ford's The Searchers, Isaac's path offers no such clear moral trajectory. The series reveals Isaac's complexity through his relationship with Shoni, embodying every aspect of these scholarly archetypes. As an Isolato, he is withdrawn not just from white society but from his adoptive native family. As a wolfwalker, he moves between worlds with the ease of someone who has learned both languages of survival. This cultural fluidity recalls Richard Harris's character in A Man Called Horse, though Isaac's journey is far less romanticized. When Sarah asks about the name for him, Kindoan, Isaac translates Spotted Hawk.
Let me say, young boy with freckles. Unless Shoshone traded for me.
Later, his native mother's gentle questioning This shows how deeply he embodies the hermit guru, someone whose wisdom comes from straddling multiple worlds. His response, "I am lost," speak to the cost of such in-between existence, a sentiment that connects him to Lonesome Dove's Gus McCrae, another man who never quite found his place in civilization or the wilderness. What distinguishes the reluctant guardian from the traditional Western hero is the nature of their transformation. When Devon asks Isaac about his hand tattoos and learning to fight, Isaac's response is telling.
Are you scared to die?
No. As long as it's the right way.
As he teaches Devon survival skills, showing him how to heat rocks for warmth, promising to teach him fishing, we see his walls gradually start to lower. This mentorship echoes the relationship between Clint Eastwood's William Money and the young Schofield kid in Unforgiven, though Isaac's lessons carry none of Money's moral warnings about the cost of violence. When Devon asks about killing bad men, Isaac's careful response about protecting family reveals his own painful wisdom. These aren't just lessons in survival, they're glimpses of the man beneath the armor, someone who knows the price of attachment, choosing to pay it anyway. The revelation of the cabin's history shatters our understanding of Isaac's isolation. As Sarah realizes this is where his family died, their conversation reveals the depths of his trauma. "I went as far as Salt Lake Valley," he confesses, describing his absence when they were killed. His mother's earlier question, "Is she your family now?" takes on a new meaning. When Sarah observes that this is why he keeps everyone away, so you don't have to feel that pain again, Isaac's silence speaks volume. His isolation isn't cowardice, it's a scar worn on the inside. The trauma-driven isolation connects him to contemporary portrayals like 1883's Shea Brennan, though Isaac lacks Brennan's driving purpose of leading others to safety. The series builds to its most powerful statement about the redemption to the approach to Crook Spring. Isaac's decision to turn back initially seems like regression to isolation, but the details tell a different story. He crafts a new crutch for Devon, transforming what was once his excuse for distance into a final act of care. The money he violently rejected at episode 1, he now silently returns, but only after he's gone. A man so committed to avoiding attachment that even his final act of love must be done at a remove. This nuanced depiction of care stands in stark contrast to the more direct heroism of Hugh Glass in The Revenant, or Jeremiah Johnson's eventual return to violent confrontation. The brilliance of Isaac's end lies in its brutal simplicity. Sarah's words to Devon cut to the heart of Isaac's worldview. "The bad guys will keep coming." When Lucas threatens them, Sarah offers Isaac's return money, but Lucas's response is chilling. Isaac's return in this moment isn't marked by heroic declarations or dramatic promises. There's only the quiet clarity of the presence. The same certainty that once drove him to isolation now bring him back to protect them. Unlike the grand standoffs of classic westerns or even the calculated violence of series like Hell on Wheels, Isaac's final conflict is stripped of glorification, showing only the grim necessity of violence in a world that offers few alternatives.
I'm right here with you.
His final moments aren't spent on grand speeches or regrets, just the simple reality of a man who finally found something worth the price he knew he'd have to pay. This stands in stark contrast to the dramatic death scenes in Open Range or 310 to Yuma, where sacrifice is laden with explicit meaning and moral clarity. What elevates this above the typical mountain man narrative is how it refuses easy transformation. Isaac doesn't die a changed man. He dies exactly who he was, just finally accepting the cost of caring. His Shawnee funeral, mixing his adopted culture with his chosen family, isn't about redemption or triumph. It's about accepting the in-between spaces where real people actually live, a thematic complexity more often found in westerns like Little Big Man than in traditional genre fare. In the brutal landscape of the American frontier, perhaps this is the closest thing to redemption, not escaping the cycle of violence, but choosing whose lives are worth dying for. The legacy of these mountain men extends far beyond the historical frontier, resonating through American cinema in unexpected ways. Take Jim Bridger, appearing in American Primeval as both Fort Bridger's namesake and founder, but also portrayed in The Revenant by Will Poulter. Both interpretations came from screenwriter Mark L. Smith, showing his fascination with these historical figures. But perhaps the most intriguing connection is Quentin Tarantino's claim that Lieutenant Aldo Raine in *Inglourious Basterds*, played by Brad Pitt, is supposedly a direct descendant of Jim Bridger.
Now, I'm the direct descendant of the mountain man Jim Bridger. That means I got a little engine in me.
When Raine declares
battle
this,
plan-
with his distinctive Tennessee drawl and penchant for survival in hostile territory, We see how the Mountain Man archetype has evolved across centuries of American storytelling. From Bridger to Isaac Reed to Aldo Raine, these characters embody America's complex relationship with violence, justice, and the wilderness frontier. Whether that frontier is the untamed West, Nazi-occupied France, or the modern boundaries between civilization and savagery that we continue to navigate today. Thanks again for watching, and thanks to our sponsor of this week's video, Buzztown. Are you ready to break into Hollywood on your own terms, even if you don't live in LA or New York? Buzztown is where serious screenwriters become working professionals. Inside this private community, you'll learn how to write bulletproof screenplays that demand attention, create a personal brand that opens doors, attach talent to your projects without agents, build an audience of fans who champion your work, and much more. As of this recording, Buzztown only invites 8 to 10 new members each month, but you can join the waitlist where you'll get an invite to live group calls, where you can connect with industry pros and even have one-on-one consultations with pro writing coaches. If you're ready to transform your screenwriting career, click the link in the description to join the waitlist today. We'll see you next week with a brand new video.